Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Friday, October the 8th. I have a walking encyclopedia sitting right next to me. Literally, this woman is a walking encyclopedia. JOAN STACK.
Hello.
State Historical Society. Good to have you here, Joan.
Oh, it's great
and
to be here.
I say that as a real compliment to you because you've got information and facts on so many things. I can just sit back and let you go. Today, you wanted to deal with what?
Well, we have a new exhibition at the State Historical Society. It opened before. I talked about it last time on here. An exhibition about the early period of statehood in Missouri. We just had our bicentennial in August. So we've called the exhibition Cultural Crossroads. And last time I talked about the indigenous people of Missouri and how important they were in our history. Mm-hmm. But in this exhibit, we show the various constituents who were operating in Missouri during this time. So we have the native people, but we also have the European Americans. And the complexities of politics in those early days of statehood. And I brought a couple of things to kind of reflect, at least on the European American side, all the kind of bickering that was going on.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of today.
Yeah, that's one thing she touched on. She said, you'd think we're divided today. We had pretty much the same thing 200 years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of it is over the states' rights and state control of things like the banking system and federal control over those things.
Right. So in those days, the state of Missouri issued its own money.
Or at least a representative, a rich man. In this case, this is Auguste Chouteau, who was a big fur trader, and he had the Bank of Missouri in St. Louis, but he pretty much controlled it. They often called it Chouteau's Bank. So I have an example here of a $5 note issued by this bank. Now, this is paper money. Paper money, a lot of people didn't even trust it. There was a senator from Missouri, Senator Benton. They called him Old Bullion. He wanted gold only.
So he didn't trust the paper money.
He didn't really trust it. But if you did have paper money, he thought it ought to be localized. The local states, the counties, et cetera.
But
and so things like this.
So if you had Missouri money and you went to another location in the country, would they accept the Missouri money or not?
Well, you would have to hope that they would. But if, Chouteau was well-known nationally, so they might accept it because they know he has a lot of money and his bank is a good bank.
But you're not sure.
But you're not
guaranteed.
Sure. Yeah, so as many people know, Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of Treasury, had envisioned a national banking system with a national bank. Mm-hmm. But that became somewhat controversial in this age of when Missouri became a state. We also have an editorial cartoon from that time, which represents Andrew Jackson, and this is from 1834. Now, what Andrew Jackson...
This is from what year?
1834. So Andrew Jackson did not trust the federal government. He did not like the national bank, and he vetoed the charter. The Congress had approved it. He said, no, we're not having a national bank anymore. In fact, I'm going to take all the money out of the national bank and give it to these pet banks, these state organizations. And Congress got pretty mad. Henry Clay, who was a very powerful man in Congress, a member of the Whig Party, he decided to censure Andrew Jackson, and they successfully did that. That was the first and only time a president has been officially censured. And so this cartoon, Andrew Jackson wanted to respond to the censure, and he said, no, you can't do that. So
he's sewing
his mouth shut.
So where was this cartoon published?
Well, back then, the newspapers didn't have the sort of financial situation to publish a cartoon that fancy. That's a lithograph. So these were distributed among partisans. I think, if you liked Andrew Jackson or didn't like it, you would, share this among your friends. So little political party
kind of
groups.
Like that would be the old-time version of Facebook.
Yes, yeah, perhaps, yeah.
You hand it to them.
Yeah. And so we have a number of things. We have a portrait of the first territorial governor of the Missouri Territory and some different things on display. But we also have a little bit to help you understand the complexities of life during that time. We have, as I said, a little section where we show some money. We show that $5 note, but there's also some pieces of 8. Back then...
Now, what are pieces of 8?
Those are Spanish currency. and we all hear about the pirates are after the pieces of 8. They're 8 reales, and these are coins that were legal in the United States because they were real silver and people trusted this as real money up until about the 1840s. And so there were a lot of Missourians on the Santa Fe Trail and different places who would, trade in.
Because that was something tangible, different than the paper money.
Yeah.
You had to have faith in the paper money, but if you had the silver or gold, that was the real thing.
Yeah, or at least that's how they considered it. And so, there was a senator from Missouri, as I mentioned, called Old Bullion, who really thought we should only have gold and silver money. Paper money was a new thing. And so it's interesting to see that, kind of, I guess, like the Bitcoin and the new currency that's on the internet.
When we're talking about this, I'm wondering what people 200 years ago would have thought about the way money operates now.
I know.
Almost a cashless society.
That's right.
Everything is done on the internet or with your credit card, where you don't actually have the money in your pocket.
That's right. So back then, we were also in this transition. There were people like Alexander Hamilton who wanted to set up national banks where they had paper money, but you could trust it. But that was they were in transition. A lot of people weren't sure about that back then. And so we're kind of in a similar situation now. I mean, I think we now accept paper money, but there are people that want to do it all on the internet now. And,
Right.
So.
Because it's more convenient that way, too.
Yeah.
But your display, how long will this display be up?
We're having this display up through February. I mean, it's not through, I think it ends in mid-February. So people will get a chance to come and learn a little bit about the early period of Missouri statehood. Mm-hmm. And the different people who were here. I think a lot of times we do forget how it took a long time for the Native American people to be kicked out of Missouri, which is a sad part of our history.
Very sad. Very sad.
But we have a lot of interesting maps that show you when the Native American people were here, and then when the treaties were signed that moved them to other places. Where did they go? So we have a lot of information about that as well. So hopefully it'll be an interesting exhibit for a lot of people.
Right.
And beautiful artwork. We do have some beautiful artwork as well.
All right. And you're open when?
We are open Tuesday through Friday, and the art gallery opens at 10, closes at 4:30, and every first and third Saturday from 10 to 2.
Okay. And the location?
We are right there on Elm Street, 605 Elm Street, that big new building across from Peace Park.
Joan, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure having you here. Drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu. Bye-bye.